paranormal, UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your hosts, Dr. Dean Bertram and Jenn Durrell.
Well, hello to all our weirdos and weirdettes. Welcome to Talking Weird on the Untold Radio Network. Thank you for joining us. This, what is in the North Woods at least, a very miserable, cold and rainy November night. But how is it in the great state of Missouri and on planet Jenn tonight, baby?
It's pretty good. We had some cold weather, but it's warming up. But what about you, though? You haven't been feeling too hot.
No, I think I have the dreaded COVID. I've had to do 3 shows this week on the COVID. Mysterious Library on Tuesday. And then I was lucky enough to guest on Doug and Alex's show, the flagship show of the Untold Radio Network, Untold Radio AM, on Wednesday night. Actually, people should go check out that interview. I think it's one of my favorite interviews I've ever done when I've been on the other side. You know what I mean? Like being a guest on a show. I really enjoyed talking to Doug. He's very open-minded, but he'll press you as well. Like, you know, he won't just let you tell him nonsense. He's a slightly aggressive's the wrong word. He wants to get to the bottom of things more as a host, which I think's wonderful. Yeah. So yeah, that was a fun show. I really enjoyed it. Any paranormal tales in your neck of the woods? I haven't talked to you all week because I've been sick and you've been busy. So I don't know if you have any paranormal tales or not.
I mean, I've had several. Actually, I'm still kind of recovering from one from yesterday, but won't really disclose the location. But I was kind of had something jump on my back. At least that's what it felt like, and I had to duck down, and I kind of hurt my neck. I think I don't know what I did, but
good grief.
It was kind of weird. It was a really odd sensation. I hadn't felt that before, so still trying to decipher what exactly that was.
Did you run around with it like Luke Skywalker with Yoda on his back for a while, a little gremlin with
No,
you?
I felt so heavy. It was heavy, and I wanted to just go land on the ground, but I couldn't decide. So I had to just, stand back up and tell it to get off of me, and I'm here as a friend. There's no reason to be trying to attack me or anything. So
what did it do when you gave it?
It eventually just stopped. I don't really know. Yeah.
Grief. Good grief.
It is good grief, but nothing bad happened. Just I hurt my neck.
Well, that's what happens when some paranormal.
I guess so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gosh. Here I'm worried about the COVID. At least that's not like trying to throttle me or something. Maybe metaphorically, but not literally.
Yeah. Had activity at the house too. Yep.
The same thing? You think it followed you home or something? Or?
I was actually, Dave, this is before that.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
What happened at your home?
I have a haunted house that goes on my wall, and it's motion censored. So it only decided to go off when my daughter was in the room. It wouldn't go off when I was in the room. So found that a little odd because it doesn't go off like that. You have to turn the lights off and on. So I had to go get some of my equipment just to see if anything goes off. And one of my equipment did go off that never goes off. So that was a little compelling. So I ended up having to confront it at my house. So don't need to go into all the details, but I don't know if it left or not, but it hasn't been bugging us or anything. I've ignored it as long as I don't try to interact. And it's got no motion detector lights to jack with. I think it leaves everybody alone.
Man, I want to hear the details. I can imagine you there with like a Bible and holy water saying the power of Christ compels you, trying to drive the thing out.
I pretty much told him, I said, you're a wimp. You keep jacking with my daughter. You're only doing it to scare her so you can get some energy from her or whatever you're trying to do. So.
And you said it's still there. It hasn't gone now.
I don't know.
Maybe you need to.
I still haven't figured out what it is, and I haven't tried to think about it too much because, a couple weeks ago, that's when I saw that odd thing in the house too. So could be that jacking around.
The goblin-esque type entity.
Right.
Jeez, you might need to get a fully fledged exorcist. See if old Ed Schultz will come out of retirement
and
and fly in.
the heck out of my house, and
Or maybe tonight's guest could come and do an episode straight from your house. That's a nice segue anyway.
You never know.
You never know. I'm delighted for who we have on tonight. We've been meaning to get him on for ages. He's an acclaimed jazz musician by night, and by later at night, he's a paranormal investigator and star of the popular YouTube documentary series ERIC MINTEL Investigates, which ranges in topics from ghosts through UFOs to Bigfoot and Dogman. Fans of his music have eagerly followed him into the paranormal world, and on many an investigation, he and his team have gotten groundbreaking footage and captured strange paranormal activity, the likes of which you've probably rarely seen anywhere. So I'm delighted to welcome to Talking Weird, the one and only ERIC MINTEL.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
hi.
Goodness. For our radio listeners, there was a great alien face grin close up to the camera instead of the wonderfully handsome and charming ERIC MINTEL. Greetings, ERIC. It's great to have you.
Greetings to you guys. How you doing? Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
No, it's good to have you. Did you hear any of our little front end chitter chatter about
I did.
things,
Jen, man, we got to get over there and try to do an exorcism. That's like crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just recently.
I'm not surprised because we've had similar things like that happen as well, which I'm sure we'll get into. But man, that's pretty wild.
That is wild. So so maybe we can jump off there. Maybe you can tell us about any haunting you've been involved with, which became dangerous or which you felt needed a type of exorcism or some kind of banishing ritual to get the thing under control.
Oh man, well that was only with my ex-wife. So, now we just actually did a video recently, and we just released it called "A Haunting at the Hanoverville Roadhouse." Now it's a restaurant up in our area here in it's Bethlehem, which is Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, and I'm here in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, but. The restaurant's, I think it goes back to 1865. Well, the owner, when we did this video, he showed me a video that he took, a static shot that he had of his dining room. Now, we never experienced anything of this magnitude, but he shows me this static shot and then tells me the story later. But I just see this video and I see the static shot of the dining room, and all of a sudden the chair from the table just bolts out like this, just right out from the table. And there's nobody there. You can't see any, I was looking at it, trying to think, well, is somebody trying to hoax this thing? And then 5 minutes later, you see an orb go over to where the chair just came out of the table, and it went over into that area. And like a second later, like a little sugar packet container on the table got thrown on the floor. And I looked at that. I said, oh, this is going to be a good one. And not getting scared or anything like that, but just intrigued, because this just kind of like the paranormal is just a fascinating subject. And like I mentioned to you before, people are seeing something, and are they more attuned to it? Is their antenna up, a little bit more than the average person? Are these things presenting themselves to certain people? So that's kind of like where I'm at with it. Like I can go into a location, but not feel what our spirit medium and my team member, Dominic Sattel, feels. And he could all of a sudden gets pictures, and, he could tell you the whole story about what happened in this particular location. So those kind of things, it's really, really cool. But Jen, I'm afraid we're going to need an exorcist for your situation there. But and that's the other thing too. It's like, we've always said, well, you think, these things follow you home. I don't know. I mean, you could believe that. And if your belief system, all of a sudden things are starting to happen, you could say, oh, this thing followed me home. But maybe not necessarily the case.
Mhm.
Although, and I know we're going to get into it, but when we were in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, I
Mhm.
had when we came back from Lee Hampel's hayfield, I had a stick I found in my room at the hotel, and then we found out later. Well, we realized the entire town of Elkhorn's power went out that night. And the next morning I see the stick in my hotel room, and I showed Dominic. He goes, "You brought it back with you, didn't you?" So it was very strange.
Ah.
Yeah, really weird stuff. And
Kind
that's
of,
why we're talking weird.
Yeah.
it kind of begs the question. Some of these things, and was something I was going to say for later, but that's almost when we start to talk about Dogman, and then there seem to be broader, weirder paranormal things attached. It tends to break down the demarcations which many researchers or many writers over the years have put up in the Fortean field. There are people who want to look at Dogman as a cryptid, and there's people who want to look at UFOs as extraterrestrials, and there's people who want to look at strange things moving in houses as just the ghost of Great Aunt Edna or something. But I suspect because you're out there looking at a wide range of phenomena and experiencing things which are weirder beyond what you would think from just like a big wolf in somebody's back 40. There is stranger things attached to it. I don't know what your positions were when you started, but that doesn't really matter so much as what they are now, although you can tell me there's been a change. Are you starting to see a different way of looking at some of this stuff holistically, maybe? Or
Yeah, I mean, really, the Elkhorn situation really changed my whole perspective on a lot of things. Because I had heard of the Beast of Bray Road, and I really, didn't really put too much into it, meaning that I had heard the story. I wasn't really familiar with it too much. But a good friend of ours and fan of our paranormal team, Ellen Collins, she had approached me and said, we should do a video on the Beast of Bray Road. And I said, I would love to do that. And then prior to this, I had seen Lee Hampel on a show on the Travel Channel. And I think that night, this was December of 2020, I had called Lee and we talked on the phone for like 2 hours about his experiences. And then fast forward July of 2021, Ellen had said we should do this video. And I said, there's two things, just logistics. How are we going to get out there and who's going to pay for it? Well, she wound up paying the whole freight, and it was amazing. So I made her the executive producer. And so it's an amazing video. It's called "The Beast of Bray Road, Alive and Well." I know you've seen it. But when we got out there, I was honestly expecting just to, we're going to hear a great story. We're going to have great interviews with people. We're going to hear this great, tale and get some witness descriptions and things like that. But not ever once thinking that we'd actually encounter this thing the night of October 3rd last year. So it was, and it's still something that we're scratching our heads about.
Can you tell our audience who mightn't have watched that video? Well, I encourage them to, and at the end of the episode, we'll make sure we throw out all the addresses and to point people to where they can watch all of your videos and everything else. But yeah, can you give us some of the highlights of that case as far as what you guys actually experienced when you were out there at night?
Yeah, well, so I just have to go back to the daytime. We had a really strange thing happen. So it was just the four of us. It was me, Dominic Sattel, Ellen Collins, and Ellen's son, Scott, who was our cameraman and drone operator. So earlier in that day, we went down to do some reconnaissance in that area, which Lee calls the bait area. And it's an area where he's put roadkill deer in this area to attract this creature, to try to get some kind of pictures, anything. Honest to God, he's got a picture that is just the weirdest thing. The trail cam pictures are 30 seconds timed apart. He has a picture where there's a mist, a black mist that comes over the deer. And then 30 seconds later, the next picture, there's no mist and the deer is gone. Very, very strange. So that's one thing. So earlier in that day, we go down there, and Scott usually wears virtual reality glasses with his drone. So we're in this area of the field, and we had disappeared off of his screen in this particular area over by the bait area. He couldn't find us. So that was the one thing that Lee has been having a lot of really weird oddities with, like electronic disturbances there. But we were there, but we just disappeared off the screen. So where were we? Who knows? That, portals have come up in that discussion as well. But later that night, we went back to Lee's farm, and he's got a great presentation that he shows of all these incredible pictures and videos that he's got, just things that'll just it blows your mind. I mean, it's like there was so much information there. I was just blown away by it. We all were. So we went down to the bait area, and I mean, right off the bat, and usually, so Dominic is a spirit medium. Okay. So this particular case was way out of his wheelhouse, and it really freaked him out because he just didn't know how to approach it. And I mean, we were all freaked out, but no sooner do we get out to the field. Now it's about 8:30. It's dark already. And we thought we'd have to scrub the entire investigation because it was really cloudy and looked like it was going to rain. But the minute we get to the area out to the field where Lee has had all this activity, it cleared up. It totally cleared up. So that's when Dominic looks up, and the first thing we saw was a UFO. And for all intents and purposes, this was a solid orb of light just going over the field and silent. And we looked later, it wasn't the space station, it wasn't any Starlink satellites, nothing like that. So we're looking at this thing, and you could see other planes blinking near it. But the weirdest thing is this thing just going over, very silent. It does a little 45-degree angle and blinks out, just disappears. That was the first thing that we encountered. And then the second thing, which changed my whole perspective on this entire case, was we started hearing these weird howls. And the one was very long in the distance, and then there was one that was closer. And these howls were not coyote. They were not wolves. They were not dogs, fox, owls, nothing like that. The third howl, when this thing made this sound, to me, it sounded like a man screaming in the field. It was this low, guttural scream, yell, growl combination, which during our investigation, we've had people telling us the same thing as what they're hearing. Did an interview with a state worker that he and his coworker got out of the truck. They heard the same thing. And this was a couple of days before we actually did our investigation. So this thing was there. And when I heard that, that was it. I said, there is something here. He's definitely got something on the property. And so we looked over. Then the third thing that happened, so we had the UFO, the howl. The third thing was, again, this weird mist that came up from the field. And later, not knowing what this mist was connected to, then I've come to find out it's also connected to Bigfoot sightings as well. But this mist is also connected to Dogman sightings. So that was the weirdest thing. And then we started getting we had little lavalier microphones, and the audio started cutting out from when we saw this mist. But the thing I want to impress your listeners on is how loud this growl was, because we had these little lavalier microphones on here, for close miking. It was so loud that it picked it up on that. And that's why in the video, I have just the raw audio of what we did there, so nothing would be manipulated. And that's one thing with our investigations. We always go with the real time, what happened. And a lot of times, if we're doing a haunted location, a lot of times we might see that evidence in post-production when you're editing. And a lot of times I'll see, maybe we'll catch orbs or disembodied voices, something like that. Rarely do we have something like that happen to us with the Beast of Bray Road right in real time on camera. So it was fascinating and changed my whole perspective.
Were you actually scared when you were out there? There was this feeling when I was watching it that you guys were actually bothered by what was going on.
Oh yeah. It was not, it was, here's the thing, Dean and Jenn, we had no protection whatsoever. I mean, we had a flashlight and a radio. That's how stupid I was going out there. And this was a real thing. And I mean, Lee offered us a flare gun, which I should have probably taken. But again, I'm going out there thinking that we're not going to see anything. That's how naive I was with this situation. So next time, we did go out next time. I'll tell you that in a second. But it was more of, to me, it was more perplexing. Like, what is this? What are we hearing? And then we saw the eye shine across the field. And that was the weirdest thing too, because we had the light over there and you could see these eyes like going like this in the corn. And that was so spooky. So that's when I saw that. And I figured we've all figured this thing is stalking us, because there was no wind, no nothing. And you could still hear this rustling sound going on behind us. And I thought, my God, man, if this thing's coming at us, we're done. We're toast. So that's when I said to everybody, I said, look, our safety is more important than this investigation. Let's get the hell out of here. And that's what we did. It was really one of the most, it was frightening and fascinating at the same time.
You said you went back there, and you did. There's another episode which looks at the follow-up. You can tell us a little bit about that? And I'm assuming you're still in contact with Lee as well, because I think he calls and leaves you messages afterwards as well, if I recall.
He does. Lee's become a great friend, and him and his brother Fred are just some of the greatest people you'll ever meet. Very, very down-to-earth guys. The thing with Lee is he was a math teacher for 35 years in the Illinois school system, Wakanda, Illinois. And so he had no interest in the paranormal whatsoever. But when this thing presented itself to him, he became a believer. So yeah, we're always in touch with Lee, and I always give him updates. But yeah, we went back for a follow-up in April of this year, and didn't encounter it this time. We didn't encounter it at all. See, Lee has been getting activity since we left. I mean, he's been getting pictures, video, this weird ghost fire that was there, just very strange stuff. But we didn't encounter it this time, and I'm kind of glad that we didn't. Because I wouldn't want people to think that we were hoaxing anything or anything like that, So, but what we did come away with was we did a town hall meeting on Thursday, April 28th, where over 140 people showed up to tell their story of seeing this creature. And what I wound up coming away with, which kind of ties into what we're investigating now, is the Beast of Bryn Athyn, or the Bryn Athyn Beast, as they're calling it out here in Pennsylvania, is the way this thing walks. It's very, the way this thing walks, it's more like it's gliding. Like we would walk and our heads would bounce like that as we're walking. This thing is going like this. It's just gliding, and it's very, very fast. And those are the two correlations that are very, very similar. And I'm wondering to myself, could this thing be traveling from portal to portal somehow? As way out there as that sounds. Here's the thing too. Would we even be talking about this 10 years ago, right? I mean, it's become more commonplace now that people are having these experiences, and I think we can't get away from it anymore. It's there.
It's interesting how there's those records of these things and other things, not just Dogman, but certainly there's these Dogman reports where entities that we don't officially or normally think of as spectral entities move the way we think of spectral entities moving, gliding. Sometimes people say they don't even see, feet connecting the ground. There's something very strange happening with some of this. And I think there's obviously a big movement of people who want to look at all of this as flesh and blood. But when you hear the type of reports that you have in those documentaries about those things, even the idea of, as you mentioned, portals, or people say maybe they come from another reality and they come here for a while and then they go again. And I'm certainly open to any different interpretation, but often, yes, even when they're here, if that's what's happening, they're not moving the way you would expect a physical entity to move when it's walking around planet Earth.
Right, exactly. And it's just fascinating, man. I mean, just like what I got out of that town hall meeting was that how genuine people were to the sightings, to these sightings. And like I said before, it's like they genuinely had some kind of weird encounter with this thing that, again, they can't figure it out. They don't know what it was. And the amount of pictures and hair samples and all kinds of stuff that Lee's got on trail cam and everything like that. I think he's trying to get some DNA testing for the hair samples, but under the microscope, these hair samples are translucent. And it's odd because, could this thing be cloaking itself? Could there be some kind of like weird anomalies there, why it's not being picked up on the camera? Like a deer sometimes will blend in with its environment. And this kind of thing may be doing the same thing. I don't know.
It's interesting. We had Todd Neese on some time ago. I believe it was Todd. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jen. And he was talking about Sasquatch hair samples, which also, or what he thought were Sasquatch hair samples, which also looked like they were translucent.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he suggested something similar regarding the idea that might have something to do with their ability to disappear or to cloak themselves or to camouflage or something. So I have heard that before, and it's interesting that Sasquatch is often what people, think of the most as being the wild, hairy man out there. And up until probably about 10, 15 years ago, it was what was primarily reported. But now it seems that, at least from what I can tell by looking at the Fortean literature, it seems like in the last 10 years, people are reporting as many dogmen as people are reporting Sasquatches. These things seem to be all over the place, at least if you believe the reports.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was blown away with, how many dogman sightings there are around the country. It's just not relegated to Wisconsin. It's all over the place. Ohio, Michigan. And then the amount of Bigfoot reports too. It's just, people are seeing something. There's something going on out there. And that's why I love this research, because we are boots on the ground out there. Almost, just for October alone, we were out every single day. And not only just because of, our videos, but we were still doing research, but we were doing a lot of screening events and things like that when we get the videos released, we go to those locations and screen the videos and then take people through some of these haunted locations. And it's been really, really fascinating. And in a haunted situation recently too, a woman that I did a video for the 1759 farmhouse, she literally had a meltdown right on camera. And I later on said, Beth, do you want me to keep that in there? Because it was really disturbing. And she said, no, if that's the way it happened, it's got to stay in there. And because I usually do all the editing. So to me as a musician, I love editing because it's like putting a piece of music together. You've always got that tension in the release there. Yeah. But the thing is, and I tried to do it in a classy way too, because I really respected her, what she was going through. There's a lot more on that I kind of left on the cutting room floor. Yeah. But for what she was going through, and later we found out this entity, this spirit, it didn't want to talk to Dominic. It was trying to talk to Beth. And basically it bum rushed Beth, and she wasn't ready for it. And what happened was she just got this emotional charge where she couldn't even breathe. It was just so overwhelming. And we never experienced that on a case before. So for us to see that, I was trying to do the best job I could to navigate everything and say, well, look, let's get her out of here so she can get some fresh air and just get out of the situation. And then later she was okay. But the weird thing was her friend Renee, who went in right after her into the same bedroom, felt the same thing. And it was going through Renee, and it finally talked through Renee. So it was just and the story there is still unfolding. And we're doing another follow-up video in January, it's unbelievable. That video is called Hallowed Grounds at the Homestead. And it started off as a very lighthearted video. It was going to be fun. I told Dominic, I said, hey, this is going to be a fun video, and it quickly, turned on a dime. It was wild.
Wow. I haven't seen that one, but I'm going to check it out after.
It's really wild. And even Beth's husband, Jacob, he's not a believer, but when he sees Beth in that situation, I said to him, I mean, what do you think now? I mean, how do you feel in this situation? He's like, well, I feel useless because I can't do anything to help her,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of like what we felt too. That's why we said we got to get her out of here. And yeah, it's called Hallowed Grounds at the Homestead. It was just unbelievable. I mean, crazy what happened there.
So is she a sensitive? Was Beth and Renee?
Yeah,
Okay.
she could feel. I mean, Beth has always felt this energy in this house,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's an original 1759 farmhouse, so it's all original wood, floors,
Mm-hmm.
everything. Nothing's been updated. There's
Yeah.
no Wi-Fi there, And we were going around with a magnetometer, and we were just getting really high readings all over the place. And we don't use a lot of the gimmicks too. Like, we don't use the spirit box. I know a lot of people use those, but I'm not putting them down, but I'm just saying we don't use those or REM pods, because they can get a false reading sometimes from equipment that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
A REM pod could go off, if you're near it with a camera,
Oh, yeah.
it's going to detect that energy. So, but Dominic has been like, he kind of gives us a preview of what we're in store for. So yeah, he's been pretty invaluable. And we've had some other spirit mediums on too. Karen Luchin is another spirit medium that she's been on a couple of cases with us. It's been like 99% right on the money. And like we were talking about before, I usually get all the history of these particular locations, and I won't say anything to those guys until we get to that location. So they have fresh eyes on everything. They don't know anything about it. And that's what I did with the Hallowed Grounds of the Homestead and this Hanoverville Roadhouse with Dominic.
Yeah.
We had no idea where we were going until we got there that night, and pretty much went to all those different places that they've been having the activity that he felt, was going on. So pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, because then that's for more validating for them too when they
Exactly.
catch on and get it right. And
Exactly. And it's I mean, it's and some of the stuff that we walk away with, man, we're like, did we just hear that? I mean, it's like we're just like perplexed by the whole thing. And even Bigfoot in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. A week after we got back from Elkhorn, we went and met with a Bigfoot researcher, Eric Spinner and Art Mack. And we went to New Jersey Pine Barrens, and we went to an area that Eric has been getting a lot of activity in called the Bowl. Now, it's an area, just like it sounds. It's very high on either side and very low in the middle. So we go down, we were, oh my God, 5 miles into the Pine Barrens is like going on the moon. I mean, it's just like there's nothing around. It's just desolate. So we were in 5 miles, and then we parked the truck and went about 600 yards in to set up base camp. And we set it up, and we're shooting some video, and Eric and Art are telling us how they're doing their protocols, how they do their research, because a lot of people don't know what the protocols are, what you would do in a Bigfoot investigation. So Dominic is talking to Art, and I have to chuckle sometimes, because when I see some of these Bigfoot programs, I hear these people whooping and hollering, right? And I go, is that what they really sound like? And I'll be damned if that's not what we heard that night.
Huh.
As they're talking, we hear whoop, like a whoop in the background. And we all heard it. And Eric had these really, really high powered microphones. And we went back and listened to it, and you could hear it plain as day. So Eric's wife, Heather, starts answering it back, and they're having this conversation. And it's all on the video too. You could see it on the video and hear it. But just picture this. It's pitch black, and you're hearing these whoops back and forth like this and having this conversation. And it sounded like it was going further away from us. And it actually, what he's been getting, he said there has been a lot of juvenile Bigfoot sightings in that area. And to us, that's what it sounded like. It sounded like a juvenile. And then we hear a very like big rustling sound behind us. Like it was like the big mama Bigfoot coming to get the baby, and then we saw very real red eye shine, like red points of light in the woods, which was another thing. So that was very, very weird. Just to have that, and that again, it changed my perspective on what's out there, and people are seeing and hearing these things. And I was like, I will never make fun of one of those Bigfoot shows again.
And in that episode, Dominic asks Art, if I recall, if he thinks reports of Sasquatches or reports of the Jersey Devil might not just have been reported ideas of a Sasquatch back in the day. There might have been some confusion and some overlap. And I think that's interesting, not necessarily so much because maybe there's definitely a physical ape-like hominid in the Pine Barrens, and people over time made the mistake and thought, well, that was the Jersey Devil. But maybe whatever's there is the same thing, but it manifests in different ways. It's interesting because I think Art was saying, or it might have been the other Eric who was there. One of them was mentioning how historically the Jersey Devil's been reported to be like as big as a horse, and it's been reported to be small like a turkey, and it's looked like a hairy humanoid. It's looked like all these different things. So he didn't continue. I think it must have been it was Art, right? Is that
it was Art? Yeah,
I think Art was saying he used to investigate that, but because it seemed there wasn't anything to kind of key in on, there were all these different reports, he took the Sasquatch one more seriously. To suggest a slightly alternative interpretation, perhaps because Sasquatch has been so well cemented in popular culture now, it's easy for people to imagine, or for something to manifest the way where if whatever's manifesting is interacting with our expectations, then yes, today it's more likely to be a Bigfoot that manifests. Perhaps 100 years ago, when the Jersey Devil legend was all the rage, and people didn't know exactly what it looked like, but it kind of looked like a devil, and it kind of had wings maybe, and maybe it looked like a horse, or it looked like a reptile. Maybe people were seeing all these different weird manifestations. And perhaps today we're at a point where when people are in the woods, because of shows like you were mentioning, like the Finding Bigfoots and, all of these other type shows, people out there hear a rustle, see red eyes, and whether they imagine then a hairy animal in the sense that it's just all fantasy, or whether whatever that is somehow interacting with our expectations, and there it becomes a hairy hominid instead of a big leather-winged horse-like creature. Who knows? But I did find that interesting when it came up in the show, that there are these different things that haunt the Barrens, and are they the same or aren't they the same? I'm not sure what your take is on all of that.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're spot on with that, because that was my interpretation, was that the Jersey Devil was being misinterpreted as a Bigfoot. And that was what I thought initially. That's what people are seeing. But again, there's a lot of really strange phenomena going on down there. So, and what Art was saying was exactly right. There were so many different things about the Jersey Devil. There was this big, tall creature. Then it was then a small, like turkey or dog-sized creature. So they were very inconsistent, but Bigfoot sightings in that area have been really prevalent for years. And having that and hearing that sound, and just having that connection, or that conversation back and forth, that was so weird. I mean, it was really very, very strange. And it was also strange that about, what was it? The week prior. So I think Eric and Art were on a Bigfoot investigation in Gettysburg. I think they were in Gettysburg, and they heard the same type howl that we heard the next night. They were out there on October 2nd, and our encounter happened on the 3rd. The other thing I want to tell you too, which was crazy, Lee's got these pictures that'll just, again, if you see these things, it'll blow you away. And he has a set of pictures that have these, it looks like orbs, right? In the middle of the daytime, these like round, clear orbs, like there's 5 or 6 of them there. But inside the orb, you could, as he zoomed in on it, it looks like there's a figure inside the orb. And it looks like it's a cross. It's like its arms are stretched out, and it's just like that. I'm thinking to myself, could this be what deposited this creature that night? Could it be a UFO dropping this thing down? Because I thought maybe, I'm a big believer in the Bigfoot UFO connection. So I'm thinking to myself, could this be that kind of connection as well? I mean, in these kind of situations, we have to look at all the most, outlandish and explanations, and just try to come up with it, because it was just so weird that how we had this trifecta of paranormal activity that happened within 10 minutes. It was insane.
It is insane. It's also fascinating they were at Gettysburg, which we consider normally of being the haunt of Civil War specters. And I know I was only talking about this recently to a friend from my daughter's homeschool group who goes to Gettysburg because he's interested both in the Civil War, but he's also interested in ghost hunting. But we associate that with ghost hunting. But apparently there we get Bigfoot sightings as well, which again makes me think some of these things might be connected. We had an interesting question from a listener whose screen name is Be Kind. And it's a question for you, Eric. It says, have you ever heard the clicking or popping sounds in the woods?
No, yeah. Yeah, when we were doing the Beast of Bray Road investigation, we did keep hearing some kind of clicking sound. And that was one of the things that was a little concerning. And then when we went back in April, we heard the same thing. But it was not so as much as a clicking sound. It was more like a pop. But again, it was that particular investigation, it was very bad weather. It was really cold, and it was just kind of like a lot different than it was in October.
So what, of all the cases you've done and everything you've seen, what's been that one moment which has just absolutely stunned you when you've been out in the field?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say the Beast of Bray Road, just because of the fact that it was just like we hit the paranormal lottery that night, because it was just like, again, going out there not thinking that we'd see anything, going out with that attitude of like, okay, well, we're probably not going to see anything or encounter anything, but it's going to be a good video. We're going to make a great documentary here. And my whole world was changed that night after hearing that. And and a couple of people are saying, well, it could have been a bear, it could have been a wolf, it could have been this, but wolves don't come that south in Wisconsin. There's wolves up way north, but I don't think they're coming down. And also, if it was a bear is not going to run. This thing kind of went away from us. A bear would attack. And so it makes me think that this thing is maybe a little bit more scared of us than we are of it. And I know other investigators have had that same kind of feeling or encounter.
Or it's playing with you as well. Do you know what I mean? So it shows a little bit, it takes a little bit away. It fits that kind of trickster almost pattern. Or
here's another weird thing, just to give you an idea of what happened too. So not only did we have all this activity, but that night of the investigation, the entire town of Elkhorn's power went out. And poor Ellen, had to take Scott back to the airport at like 2 a.m. and try to get downstairs. It was pitch black in the hotel. But in the morning, I looked in my hotel room, and I must have brought back a stick from Lee's Field. And I went downstairs and had coffee with Dominic. And I said, look what I brought back from Lee's. He's like, you brought it back with you, didn't you? So, it was just very, very strange. The whole night, the whole investigation was very, very strange. And again, we want to get back out there again and do another follow-up, do another investigation, because there's a lot more out there. There's a lot more going on that we know.
Yeah, it's funny how when people, I think, start to look at more and more of these things as you do and spend more time in the field, you'll get all these staggering synchronicities and coincidences, like you pick something up and then the power goes out, or something follows you home. Or how does this all gel with being a well-acclaimed jazz musician? Like, how do you fit those two? It's something I was going to ask at the beginning, but we went straight into crazy haunting stories. Like, I'm guessing, I know the jazz musician stuff came first, but did you always have an interest in this, or how did you combine them both into your life?
Always loved the paranormal, and being out here in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, like I said before, we've got a rich history of not only just history, George Washington. I lived down the street from where Washington crossed the Delaware, And so you've got all of these great
Wow.
historical homes here. You've got ties to the Underground Railroad, and just a lot of really wild phenomena. We had a big UFO flap in 2008 as well. But I had always loved the paranormal and have been a jazz musician most of my life. I started my group, the ERIC MINTEL Quartet, in 1993. And basically, we started doing the college circuit. And then fast forward to 1998, we got invited to perform at the White House and played for President Clinton in 1998, and and then fast forward 13 years later, got a chance to perform for Obama in 2011. So we've been at the Kennedy Center, we've been at the United Nations. So we've done a lot of really great things in the jazz world. And thankfully, my jazz audience has followed me into the paranormal world, because there's people that are having these experiences. And I think because the government's disclosing the UFO information, I think a lot of this is more commonplace and people feel a little bit more, approachable, and they feel more relaxed to tell their story on camera.
Yeah, and you're obviously very good with people as well from years of being involved in entertainment. So you know not only how to work a crowd, but I'm sure how to get somebody to open up to you on a personal level as well, which is great.
Yeah, it's, and that's the thing. We respect everyone's privacy. We respect everyone's, story. We just did the Bryn Athyn Beast video, and a gentleman did not want to be on camera. But he was totally cool with telling his story about what happened. He just didn't want to be on camera. So I put him on, from behind, and you disguised his voice, and I called him Mr. Dark.
I saw that.
So he was Mr. Dark, but he told us this incredible story about, this vortex area, seeing UFOs, seeing this Dogman, and just it's just been fascinating, man. And then by doing that, we've gotten more people now that have seen this thing. And now we're doing more investigations and more interviews with people, and working with Tom Carey. Tom Carey is the Roswell legendary Tom Carey.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that beside Tom's work in Roswell, he's also an anthropologist. So he's all about Bigfoot and the Dogman. This has really grabbed a hold of him, and he's not letting it go. He's going to see it through.
Yeah, I didn't know that about him either. He co-authored that Witness to Roswell book with Don Schmidt. I know that. We've had Don Schmidt on the show again. He's a great gentleman. So when I was watching your documentaries, I'm like, wow, I had no idea this guy was looking into Dogman as well as into the Roswell story.
Yeah, and Tom is like a next door neighbor of mine practically too. So so is Bill Burns. Bill Burns from the History Channel.
Yeah. The UFO magazine guy.
The UFO magazine. This is how wild this is. When I started, initially it was called Bucks County Paranormal Investigations in 2016, but then it changed to ERIC MINTEL Investigates. And really what we're doing is we're doing videos on great historical locations that have ties to history and to any paranormal history. And these are videos that we do, and they're on my TV show. It's called ERIC MINTEL Investigates. And so we're actually I call us a paranormal tourism show, because we're showing people what to do, where to stay, where to go, because people want to experience these experiences. And during COVID, we were thriving with video, because the idea was when everything gets open again, people are going to want to go visit these wonderful places. So it's been just a lot of fun. We've got a lot of videos coming up for the new year. And I'm very active in the jazz world too. So we've got next month we'll be doing our Charlie Brown Christmas Jazz tour, which we're doing that all over the countries.
Who is it? Vince Guaraldi.
Vince Guaraldi. You got it. Yep. Yeah.
My daughter's such a fan. I see his name on screen every second day. That's why.
I'll have to send you a link. We did an online concert for a library that they wanted to do something online, because they couldn't have people in the concert because of the COVID restrictions. But I'll send it. Your daughter will love that.
Oh, she would love it. She'd really appreciate that. So are there any ones you can tell us about coming up? Any ones to look out for, a particular
videos? Case? Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a well, we're going to do a follow up on the Bryn Athyn Beast video, because we've got
excellent.
we've got a lot of new witnesses that have come up to us about this, and two guys that were actually in. Well, the one guy that we interviewed, and his friend. There's a lot more to the story that wasn't told on the video, and there's other paranormal phenomena going on in that area. Not only just with the Dogman, but with ghosts too. So yeah, it's a very weird area, and I didn't.
You know what? I'll
realize
tell
how-
you, I will love all the episodes where you can connect different, like where you had the UFO sighting and the Dogman thing. Or I
Yeah.
love to see that fusion stuff. It fascinates me. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's amazing. And then we're going to do a lot of follow-ups. So we're going to do another follow-up on the hallowed grounds at the homestead, where Beth had her experience. Because now, since we've done that video, there has been a lot more that has now come to light in this particular situation that we didn't film yet. So we're going to shoot that video pretty soon. There's a haunted antique store that we're actually going to do as well. A haunted church, and I know I'm missing another one here. Oh yeah, there's a township that has that wants us to do a video on the town itself. So we've got some really cool things coming up.
Oh, nice. I saw Jen's eyes light up with some of the haunted mentions. Have you got some more questions for Eric? I've been hogging the conversation.
Yes, Jen. Come on,
No.
Jen.
Well, I was waiting to hear all of the stories about the encounters, so they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you're mostly over in Pennsylvania. So what can you kind of describe to us, like your most scariest encounter, or that you
Yeah.
had investigating?
In Pennsylvania, yeah, I mean, that Hanoverville Roadhouse, that was very weird. And when your viewers, hopefully your viewers will go over and check out some of the videos, because you've got to see what we captured in the attic.
Okay.
And it was just oh my God, it was so crazy, because when Dominic and I both went up there. And again, when I said I don't usually feel those things, right? But in this attic, I did. I felt like the feeling of vertigo. You know, when you feel that like dizzy kind of feeling, it was that kind of like a very heavy type feeling there. And Dominic felt the same thing. But we put a static camera up there, and then we went down and did the rest of the investigation. And then looking at that footage later on, it was unbelievable what we caught. And it was. We're still trying to figure that out. And the owner was like, oh, wow, he didn't know. and the owner, thankfully, I just love working with forward thinking people, because, sometimes people might say, oh, I don't want my restaurant to be known as a haunted restaurant. I don't want to scare customers away. Yeah. It's complete opposite. People want to go see these and experience these places. So if anything, it's a boom to the business. Yeah. For having somebody like us to come in and do a video, because we're driving people to that location, right? And then therefore they're making money from that as well. So it's a good situation to be in. But but as far as scary goes, that place was off the charts haunted. And then one other place, literally right down the street from me, it's the Plumsteadville Inn. Now we did this one last year, right before we left for Elkhorn, and this rarely happens, but we had an actual anomaly happen on camera. We were investigating the ballroom, and we had Dominic. It was all of us. Dominic, Dave Antonow he's my bass player, but he's also a team member. And then Karen Luchin, our spirit medium, myself, and our cameraman Tom. So we had like 5 people in there. We're in the ballroom, and Karen says, "Oh my God, I'm getting a headache in here. I feel like there's like a mischievous spirit." And with that, we're on the other side of the ballroom, came in the front door. We go on the other side. We hear this big bang, and we're like, what is that? And the cameras are rolling. So Tom turns toward the door that we just came in, and we go over, and here my tripod which was securely on the chair, was now on the floor. And then my microphone case that was on the table was now on the chair. So some force came over and knocked those things off. And it was no one else. There was no one else in there. And we were like, wait a minute, I had that on the chair. Now it's off the chair. And you could see that. It's called Mysteries of the Plumsteadville Inn. And we caught some other stuff there too. That was very heavy ties to the Underground Railroad. And in this one area where Karen figured out someone was hiding in this area, the magnetometer was going off the charts in this area. So that whoever it was still there. And it was just very, very creepy. So, you know, some stuff like that you can't explain, you know. You know, sometimes the magnetometer, yes, that'll go off with wiring and things like that. But there was nothing on. There was nothing in that area. And it was just, we've never had this thing go that high of a reading. Actually, until we hit the Hanoverville Roadhouse, and then all bets were off. That was crazy. So that was nuts. But those two were, you know, I don't want to say scary. I've never really been scared per se, although the Beast of Bray Road is a close, you know, is a close one. I'm more like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like when you're in that situation, like you see a light, you see the UFO, you're like, I want to get a picture of that. You know, what is that? You know, it's that perplexing, like, I want to get that. So that's what we felt like with the Beast of Bray Road. Like, what are we hearing? What is this thing? So, and just real quick, the weird thing was Ellen, and then I later found out Lee, but Ellen had a dream that the Dogman had put its claw in her palm of her hand and told her why it was there. Now, Lee had no idea about this situation, about that dream. It turns out Lee's been having a similar dream. It's very, very weird connection there. So, and you could see, like, Ellen is on that video and she's kind of like she's looking up, and it almost looks like she is in a trance. And that's when she said that happened. And I'm looking, and then and that's what Dominic goes, are you hearing this howl? Because she was just like stoic right there. And then she kind of got out of it and said, yeah, it's over that way. And that's when we heard the third howl. So little things like that, as an investigator, you have to kind of look at and say, what is she feeling, or what is she? And this is not the first time she's had this dream. She's had this recurring thing a few times.
Can she remember what the Dogman said to her?
I think it said something like they're here to procreate. And there was something else here. Their species was dying, and they were here to keep the species going.
You know something? That's very common to not only extraterrestrial lore, the whole supposed reason for ET breeding programs, but that's a very common trope throughout fairy lore and fairy belief as well. So that's fascinating. It's interesting how these things intersect and connect with each other.
That's and that's why we love doing what we do. I mean, it's just really, really fascinating. And, you know, and the other thing is too, you always leave, and I know you know this too, we always leave with more questions than we do answers, because there's just never a definitive answer what this is. It's infinite, because the experiences are so different from everyone's different in their experience. So, but we try to get as close to that truth as we can.
Yeah, I'm in my pessimistic moments. I think we're never meant to get to the final truth. It's meant to be something which is always a mystery for us. They're always extending the promise of some type of enlightenment, but never actually delivering.
I mean, one theory I heard is the extraterrestrials are us from the future. You know, and that's another theory, you know. So and the Roswell aliens, according to Tom, he was told that they were time travelers. So it wasn't extraterrestrial, it was extra dimensional. So those are very fascinating things to think about, you know.
There's all these different interpretations. It is fascinating. And your videos are fascinating. I know he talks about that in one of the videos Tom's on with you. So can you tell people, I saw Joe Fox, one of our longtime listeners and favorite audience members, he was asking before, where does he check out the videos? And so maybe you can tell everybody how they can keep tracks of what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Watch your videos, everything else.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. They can find us on YouTube at ERIC MINTEL Investigates. And they can find us on Facebook, same name, ERIC MINTEL Investigates, and also on Instagram, ERIC MINTEL Investigates. Mostly, I will release new videos on our YouTube channel. And then also, on Facebook. Facebook did away with their premiere video thing where you would premiere videos, unfortunately. But I usually schedule a video on there. So, but people could check us out there. And we've got some new content. We've got almost like 80 videos right now on the channel. But also, if people are, if they have a smart TV, they can see us all over the country. Just add Central New Jersey Network to their smart TV, Central New Jersey Network. And I'm on every Saturday night at 11 o'clock and from 11 to 11:30. And on Sunday nights over just out here in Pennsylvania, I'm up in the Lehigh Valley on cable, on Service Electric cable. And it's about 80,000 homes there. And with the streaming services, we're on Roku, all those different outlets. We have access to over 100 million homes. So it's really, really cool. And then we're working on a travel channel show too. So
they should give you one. You'd be great on one of those shows.
Yes, please, please.
Well, Eric, you were a great guest. It was a joy to finally have you on here. You and I have been talking about doing this for months now. We finally worked out a time which worked for both of us.
Absolutely, man. I am so glad this worked out, and what a pleasure talking to you guys too. And I know you guys are doing a lot of really tough work, man. I mean, doing podcasts and your research. I mean, we can't thank you guys enough.
Oh, well, we thank you. And until we get to chat to you again, which hopefully will be soon, and to everybody else out there watching and listening, keep it weird.